looking. Laying it off. Justin! Patrick! Ariel sends it in. Off of Dressel. Made it to Elliott. Julian Carnes! A spectacular finish! Philadelphia. Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and welcome to another Thursday morning early podcast edition live with José Nuñez. Like I told you guys last episode, we would be reunited once again, and man, a few hours removed, it feels like, from last night's comeback victory against LA Galaxy 3-2. The first Philadelphia Union win since 2012 against LA Galaxy. The first win against Galaxy at Subaru Park. And last night, Jose, was electric. Last night was definitely not full in the stadium. But when the Union came out and tied the game up 2-2 within 2 minutes of scoring the first goal, scoring 2 goals in 2 minutes, you had a feeling last night was going to be special. And I don't know if it captured that on the broadcast. I don't know if you could hear the excitement in the crowd. I don't know if you watching from home, people that are listening to the podcast watching from home, I don't know if they felt that last night had the potential to be truly special. And then when that goal gets scored by Tai Baribo in the 96th minute, you have all the players running down towards the corner flag where Keystone State Ultras used to be. All the players are jumping on top of each other. All the players are going crazy. Bradley Carnell, his coaching staff are all hugging each other, jumping up and down. I watched Frankie Westfield jump off the bench, run towards all the players celebrating. You have Andrew Rick coming all the way from his goal towards the video board, come sliding in on his knees, celebrating with his team. This is a team, Jose, that I had questions coming into the season, and I still had questions when Daniel Gazdag was traded that, look, yeah, Bradley Carnell's the head coach of this team, but this still feels like Jim Curtin's team. But after last night, I don't think there's any questions that these players, this coaching staff, the front office are bought into how Bradley Carnell wants to play, and this is truly a Bradley Carnell team.
Yeah, good morning, first and foremost. Thank you, Todd, for having me early here in the AM. Mark was just up here a couple minutes ago, sort of joking, like, do we have to do radio identification, right? It's like an early morning breakfast show on your drive to work. So I'm glad that people can join us, or those that are going to watch it later, maybe over lunch. Thank you for listening. Yeah, this is exactly what you described, right? This is the I would even go one layer deeper in a way, Todd. This is the Ernst Tanner show, right? And in terms of the team that's assembled, the team that is here. Sure, were there questions ahead of the season? Absolutely. Did some of us maybe realize that this team was going to be better than what many thought? Absolutely. I think you're on that boat with me. I never ever for a second thought that this was going to be a 25-point team all season, as some others have thought. But like it's just so fun to see this team coalesce despite some of the shifting in terms of players, right? Winning is the best cure to forget about things. And as much as Jack McGlynn contributed, I don't think many in the fan base would want to mess with what's going on in Philadelphia. Now that Gazdag gone and the Union are continuing, and by the way, Columbus struggled against Montreal. Gazdag has gone ahead and moved on. I did not attend the game last night, and even through the screen, you could tell that it was going to be a special night, especially after that first goal. It sort of felt like, okay, like they're going for this, right? And I'm so glad, and I'm sure you have a clip here or there from Carnell's press conference after the fact, but like, the player sort of stepping up and saying, like, give us 10 more minutes to turn this around. I think that's what I picked up from the press conference. Players or the coaches saying, we'll give you 10 minutes to flip this shit around, and if you don't, we're going to start making changes. And I think the team responded very well to that, and I commend the fans that were there. It's not easy, I acknowledge that, to be there on a Wednesday night. I wasn't there because I want to keep my marriage alive, considering how much I travel for work, never mind doing the soccer stuff. So kudos to everybody that showed up, showed out, and enjoyed the evening. You are muted, my friend. That mute button, you're hot on it today.
I am hot on it. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, you're right, Jose. That I do have a couple clips lined up. I do want to highlight, Bradley Carnell talking about Danley Jean Jacques. I want to highlight
Mhm.
him talking about Mikael Uhre, and then I have a clip from Mikael Uhre. I mean, from Tai Baribo after the game. It was Jacob Glesnes and Tai Baribo. I don't know if anybody else came out to speak, but honestly, I didn't feel like waiting 15 plus minutes for Jacob Glesnes to take his post game shower or whatever. So I was like, I'm leaving. I got what I needed from Tai Baribo, and so I'm not sure what Jacob Glesnes said. I don't know if anybody else spoke, but yeah, last night was electric, and all the comments that are coming in right here. Shaggy says, "Let's go! What a game last night." John says, "Welcome back to the Free Kick Podcast." Shaggy also happy to see Jose here. He says, "Jose's here, nice." Mike Barrera chiming in says, "Hell yes." Drew says, "Last night had the potential to be a nightmare, but the boys dug deep and pulled out the W." John also says, "Such an electric night." Mike Thomas says, "I haven't slept. Too much adrenaline." I think that's probably what a lot of people would say too. And Drew highlights the fact that attendance wasn't great, but it was decently loud for the amount there. And that's it, right? I had said in the intro that last night you could tell that the fans could sense something special was building. You go down 2-0, and the Union weren't great. I don't think that's any shock to saying this to anybody. The Union sucked last night, right? In the first half. They couldn't create chances for Bruno Damiani. They couldn't create chances for Tai Baribo. And that is what I asked Tai Baribo on the night. And we'll play his clip a little bit later because Ty did create history last night for the Union. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. But yeah, I just keep going back to that game in 2019, right, Jose, where the Union are down 2-0 to New York Red Bulls, and then Il Senior takes over the game in the second half. And this is a team that is coming in midweek. They give up a late equalizer against Columbus Crew, tie 2-2, which felt like a loss. And again, don't need to really rehash what happened in that game because it does feel like a loss, even though it was a draw because of how late you give up that goal. But last night's game, credit to the Union, they go down 2-0. And it's interesting because LA Galaxy didn't create a ton of chances, right, Jose? They had two shots in the first half, and both shots they were clinical and put it in the back of the net. You have Danley Jean Jacques making a mistake on the first goal with giving away the ball in LA Galaxy's half of the field. Galaxy go and then hit on the counterattack. You have Jovan Lukic, who doesn't track or run, and then LA Galaxy punish them and go up 2-0. And very frustrating to see, and especially with the Union not really creating any chances. And the question is, okay, what fight does this team show coming out of halftime? That was the second time this season that the Union had conceded the first goal at Subaru Park, and the second time this season that the Union have trailed at Subaru Park. That game, both of those stats happening against Nashville, and the Union wind up losing 3-1 to Nashville, I believe it was. Could have made it 3-2 if Quinn Sullivan has his penalty converted, but he gets it saved towards the end of that game. But this is a team that really hasn't been tested, Jose. And last night was a true testament into the belief, into the buy-in by these players in Bradley Carnell. And I touched on it, right? That yeah, a lot of players out here are who Jim Curtin had in his team when he was the head coach. You get rid of Daniel Gazdag or trade Daniel Gazdag in April to Columbus Crew, and that's a big wake up call, and that can really shift things in the locker room. Getting rid of the club's all time leading goal scorer is such a huge figure in that locker room, and you know what? Credit to these players for just going about their business. And that's exactly what they did against LA Galaxy last night, Jose. They went about their business. It wasn't pretty, but they dug deep. They dug so deep. And to get a 96 minute, I mean, it's got to feel so good to score a goal that's essentially the last kick of the game. And the players knew it, the coaching staff knew it with how hard they celebrate it. And Kyle Almany had said to me after the game, he said, those scenes remind you of a playoff game. I mean, how many times do we see the players go crazy? I can remember New York Red Bulls, that late winner Jacob Glesnes had against the Red Bulls, where you have Jim Curtin running down the touchline, kicking the sideline board and everything. That's what last moment felt like. It felt like this is a huge playoff win. And we know it's a regular season game. And I think this team realizes that, if we want to be great, we got to beat the teams that we got to beat. And like I said, they don't get tested a lot. but they showed a mentality that maybe some didn't think they had. And again, that fully goes into buying into what Bradley Carnell's selling these guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack in what you said, Todd. This is, I think, the first time in a while where I felt that this team has gone through back-to-back games where it is genuinely a tale of two halves, right? Against Columbus, it was very much the first half all Union, and the second half sort of retreating and letting Columbus creep back in. And now you go to this LA game and you have, honestly, the opposite, right? Where the Union completely roll over and let LA sort of, I don't want to say dominate, but certainly be advantageous about the chances they have, and they capitalize on them. But it's also really interesting because it is one of those rare games where the Union had more possession as well as more passes and more passes completed than LA. So whether that's a compliment or a negative comment to Los Angeles, that remains to be seen. Funny text I just got. Neat. It's absolutely right what you're saying, right? This is sort of a Bradley Carnell. Um, the players have bought in, right? They've certainly picked up the system, and I mentioned this with Mike and Mark last night, where the players have absolutely bought into the Carnell era in terms of the style of play. It almost feels like the players that were maybe on the outskirts of Jim Curtin's rotation obviously now see the light in terms of Tai Baribo. And though you could argue, and I think accurately so, that Baribo did come in towards the tail end of Jim's stay in Philadelphia, but more out of necessity than necessarily earning it. But it's so cool to see that this team can do it, and they can. This feels like a victory that last year certainly would have been a loss. So they I don't think could have mustered what they did last night, at least not towards the tail end of the season where it felt all but gone. But then also it reminded me so much of that 2022 team where like there really wasn't a game that they weren't in it. You know what I mean? Like that even though someone wasn't firing in all cylinders, someone else was picking up the slack. And I think that's sort of what you see now with this team in terms of some players. Like I never imagined I would watch Danley be the reason why they gave up one of the goals, right? In terms of trying to dribble through three freaking players all at once in the middle of the park. Like that is an unbelievable. And then maybe it was commentator's curse based on what I shared with somebody, how much I sung their Danley's praises. That was on the broadcast last night. But nonetheless, like it's so cool to see, and it gives me so much hope, so much hope for what's to come this season. But sometimes hope is what kills you, right? Don't want to put all the eggs in the basket, but you cannot not be excited about this team and what they're able to do, considering the mood that the fan base was in, the mood that the national media was behind this team, and ultimately flipping the script here, despite the rotation of players in and out.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And Mike Barrera says that's one reason why having Bedoya in the locker room is important. He helps keeps this team locked in despite leaving in changes. And yeah, I mean, I think when I think of a Jim Curtin team, the first player that comes to mind is Alejandro Bedoya. How many times did Jim Curtin tell us that, Bedoya was essentially like a second coach? He was being the mediator between the players and the coaching staff. And whenever there was issues, Jim could rely on Bedoya to relay it back to the coaching staff and vice versa. And so I think, that's tough for Alejandro Bedoya. He's played for a lot of different coaches in his career, but he's only played for one coach here in Philadelphia. And Jim Curtin, Chris Albright, neither one of those guys with the organization anymore, but they were big, big, big personalities to get Alejandro Bedoya here from Nantes back in 2016 to Philadelphia, selling him on this project. Like, we know we've been a pretty terrible franchise since our existence, but we have goals, we have dreams of taking this thing to the next level. And taking it to the next level, right, Jose, was winning that first playoff game in 2019. The next year, winning the Supporter Shield. Yeah, it's COVID. And then getting consistent, constantly winning playoff games, reaching 2 Eastern Conference finals, then making it to MLS Cup in 2022. And the only thing I would say that's missing for Alejandro Bedoya is MLS Cup. he has been everything and then some for Philadelphia Union since signing over from Nantes. I mean, he is the perfect ambassador for this club. He's the perfect ambassador of somebody that embodies being Philadelphia. And I don't know if this is the last season for Bedoya, right? It's been a couple seasons where it's like, this could be the last. This might not be the last. And he keeps getting these 1-year deals. But what a fairy tale story it would be for Alejandro Bedoya to be on his second ever coach with the Philadelphia Union. A lot of key players wind up getting traded away. And wouldn't that be something, right? I know we're week 12, week 13 now in MLS, and there's still a lot of soccer to be played, but wouldn't that be something, right, Jose, to see this team get just broken down the last 6 months, however long it's been, when you get rid of so many key players, and seeing Bedoya potentially lift MLS Cup or lift the US Open Cup. So Mike's right. He's a huge presence in that locker room, and yeah, Bedoya may not be the player that he used to be, but he still has a role on this team, keeping this team together, keeping that belief, and yeah, Bedoya is going to be big for this team just throughout the rest of the season, in my opinion.
He certainly did not look like a 30-year-old yesterday, and how he played, and how he commanded and captained, more or less. I don't recall if he ended up with the captain's armband at the end there. I don't think so. Did he? Did he end up getting it when he came in?
No, Glesnes had it.
Glassness had it then. Okay, yeah, because sometimes they do where, like, the player comes off the bench and he's maybe the more senior or whatever, like, put it on type of thing. But man, as soon as he came on, it was so lively. I don't even know how to describe it. It felt like a completely different team. And sure, like the trail was already, like, if you look at the match momentum on whatever website for statistics, like, of course it's like it was climbing, climbing, climbing. And there were moments where the Union did not look good. Obviously, after those fast, within 5 minutes, I think it was the 2 goals that the Union scored. It felt like it lulled a little bit, and then obviously it picked up as soon as Indy Vasilev came off. And
He picked up an injury, apparently, Carnell said.
yeah, we'll have to hear. Maybe this is Ben Bender time, right? That's sort of what he was picked up for. I wonder his role this, but we can talk about this weekend, and you have a show later on today with someone else out in Atlanta. But yeah, Bedoya is going to be critical, and I will be the first one to say that maybe I've been wrong. I assumed that his role this year was going to continue to diminish, and maybe so in terms of minutes played. But ultimately, with what I saw yesterday, and I think a lot of people witnessed yesterday watching that game, like, he has equally as important parts to play as he ever did before, in terms of what he can bring off the bench and what he can do in terms of, as you put it, I guess, mediating between coaching staff and players, and even talking to us in the press, right? Being just very open, but also being careful and thoughtful about the way he answers things to make sure that he's not putting anyone down, and ultimately lifting everybody that he can.
And the last thing I'll say on Bedoya before I read Mike Thomas's question, because it does play into uh, somebody who I think had a terrible game in the first half, and then they come out and have a really really strong second half, being Danley Jean Jacques. But Bedoya, I said it may not be the same player you talked about. Jose may not be a 90-minute starter anymore. But the thing about him is his soccer IQ is so high, and that's something that never goes away. He always knows the positions where he should be. Always knows the pass that he should make, and he kind of reminds me in Jack McGlynn, or Jack McGlynn reminds me of him in that way, where Jack McGlynn, I think, has a very high soccer IQ. And
Mm.
yeah, your body may not be able to keep up with your mind, but your mind always stays the same. And Bedoya's mind, if you could just place that in all these players, you'd have a really, really, really solid team because of how high that soccer IQ is. But Mike Thomas, he asked right here, Jose, he says, if this trend continues, winning, got to reinforce in the summertime and go for it. No. And yeah, I do want to talk about Danley Jean Jacques. 5 goal contributions his last 5 games. And you had made this tweet last night, Jose. You had said he is a product of good scouting. And that is 100% the correct response by you, Jose, that Danley is a product of good scouting. Jovan Lukic, a good product of scouting. And Mike's question there, if this trend continues with winning, got to reinforce in the summertime and go for it. And I do agree. I do think so. We saw that the Union have a little bit over $800,000 in GAM available with MLS's latest update in terms of GAM. We do know they got a significant amount of money for Daniel Gazdag from the Columbus Crew. And yeah, I would imagine that the Union do go out there and bring in some players. We've talked about on the show, probably need another center back. Goalkeeper, I think, would be an issue or a potential signing. We'll see what happens with that. But I would say center backs definitely on that list has to be up high. Could you do with another midfielder? Maybe you did sign Ben Bender, like you mentioned. Another striker, if you could get a good deal, because I think you're very, very happy with Bruno Damiani. I think you're happy with Mikael Uhre. I think you are happy with Tai Baribo. But let's not forget, Mikael Uhre's contract's out after the season. And if you could get a good deal on a player in the summertime and get ready for, okay, whatever is to come the rest of the season, but then transitioning to next year, if you don't bring in Uhre, maybe strikers on that list too. But I wouldn't be surprised, though, that there could be departures. And a lot of people talk about Quinn Sullivan, which I think he's having a good season. Had a quiet game last night. You and I think would both agree on that. But for the most part, he's been really consistent. But Danley Jean Jacques is the player that I'm a little bit concerned about. And I know we talked about this a few shows ago with Paris FC coming up to Ligue 1. I'd imagine they want players with Ligue 1 experience. Danley Jean Jacques checks that box. FC Metz, I have to check. I believe they are still in the playoff race to potentially get promoted back up, his former club. But 5 goal contributions in his last 5 games. That's going to rise Danley's price. And that's good for the Union, right? Because maybe they get an offer that they can't say no to. And you and I think would both agree that Danley's probably a little bit too good for MLS. And that's a good thing for the Union. They take advantage of Mets getting relegated. But again, going back to your tweet, Danley, Jovan, both good examples of good scouting in this organization. And if the Union do go out and be active and sign a player or two, you got to be pretty confident in them.
You have to be, and I think you sort of hit on a lot of the pieces that they could probably pay attention to, whether it's a center back, right, to start thinking about the progression beyond Glesnes, a center midfielder, maybe a striker. The situation with goalkeeper is interesting in terms of, got to move one on somewhere, somehow, and potentially bring somebody else. Maybe that's easy enough to find an American somewhere overseas that would be interested in coming. Just in joking with Mark yesterday, Klinsmann's kid would have been a perfect example of had that team not gotten promoted to, or I think they officially got promoted to Serie A, or they're in the playoffs. I forget how it works in Italy right now. But you're also absolutely correct in terms of the very concrete interest on players that the Union have now, but maybe no formal offers that have come through. Something I'm sure will come through this summer that may tempt the Union to say, this is the right number for this player. This is, obviously those numbers are maybe creeping up as they continue to perform very, very well. The Danleys of the world, the Quinn Sullivans, who I will continue to say did not play well yesterday, unfortunately for him, very much a ghost and not really having a part in last night's match. But it'll be fascinating to see what they decide to do and how they go about it. Though one thing remains true, whether they subtract more than they add or they add more than they subtract, it's, I think, fair to say that they've earned the trust considering what they've been able to spin up this season with, the moves that many seemed as questionable, right? Jack McGlynn moving on, Daniel Gazdag moving on. Gotta just at this point maybe trust it, right? It's worked so well so far, and Carnell is eager to follow along with what Ernst is sort of putting down. So the dance between the two is working very well. There's no denying that. It's just, can people stomach that and trust it? I still remain in the camp fully that U.S. Open Cup lifting it up is the absolute, would be a gigantic success to the season, even if they crash out the first round of the playoffs. If they make it to the second round of the playoffs and lift up a trophy in terms of the U.S. Open Cup, I think that it's an unbelievable season for what the Union were expecting, or I was expecting for the Union to do. So everybody's expectations will be different. I know that this is Philadelphia, one of the biggest markets in the world for sports, etc. But uh, again, I think it's about context, how down the fan base was on this team, how down the national media was on this team. But those of us that understood ball and saw the pickups that they made and maybe had the right conversations with people behind the scenes that give context onto these players and why, could probably see it. We saw it from almost a mile away that this team was not going to be as bad. There's just absolutely no way that this team was going to be as bad as last year.
Yeah, and I won't lie, right? I said this was a playoff team. I just thought they would be a 7-8 team, and they sit in second place in the Eastern Conference. So even me, they're higher than what my expectations were. Yes, I thought they'd be a playoff team, but I don't think that I had them this point in the season in second place, trailing behind FC Cincinnati. And again, that's going back to Bradley Carnell. These players buying into how he wants to play. And Bradley Carnell had talked about, I think he had mentioned it to you, Jose, just trying to get Ben Bender up to speed, trying to learn the system, the style of play, and the pressing cues. We know how important that is. And you look at a player like Indiana Vassilev, when you get rid of Daniel Gazdag, trade Daniel Gazdag, it was an easy fit for Indiana Vassilev because he knew how Bradley Carnell wanted to play. And so, yeah, it's going to take time with whatever players the Union do decide to bring in the summertime. I'd imagine they do, because this is a complicated system. Everybody does their part. It's when the strikers go, okay, you need to know this is the part of the field you need to be. And the center backs then move and everything. And sometimes they get caught out of position because they're just aggressive. And that's what this system calls for. And, we'll see. We'll see, right, what the Union decide to do in the summertime. But yeah, I mean, last night's victory really, really big. And I do want to play a clip when Bradley Carnell talking about Danley Jean Jacques and just this run of form that he's in. 5 games with 5 goal contributions for the Philadelphia Union.
We put a lot of focus on overloads between the lines, and that gives Danley a little bit of space, to arrive unaccounted for, maybe to arrive late into the box or arrive late to supply some crosses. So he has a great engine. I was a bit unsure if we should last or if he should last the whole game, and try and make changes. But then with good moments, you get a little bit more gas in the tank, and then there's positive vibes, and then all of a sudden you don't feel as tired. I know it was a short turnaround for some of the guys, or most of the guys, obviously, and it was touch and go whether we keep Danley on, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah, and it was the right decision, keeping on Danley Jean Jacques, and he comes up big with that assist, 5 straight games with goal contributions now for the Union, and his stock going to continue to rise. And yeah, we'll see how long he's a Philadelphia Union player. And again, just really good scouting from the Union to find a player of his quality. And again, have all the confidence in the world if players leave in the summertime that they'll be able to go out and replace them. And Mike Barrera brings up a comment right here and says Bender and a healthy Glavinovich could be those additions come the summertime that help. We really haven't had the chance to see Jan. And yeah, he's right. And so you do wonder how he comes back from the meniscus surgery. Hopefully he's as healthy as he was before he got that injury. Hopefully he can find his form right away. Hopefully Ben Bender also had a knee issue back in 2023 with Charlotte, which oddly enough, he suffered against the Union. Made his debut coming back from that injury in May of 2024 with Crown Legacy. Eventually gets sent down on loan with Tampa Bay Rowdy, and then just unable to break into the team this season. And so he's going to be a player that's hungry, right? Finds a new lifeline, and maybe this is potentially his last chance in MLS. So he feels like he has something to prove. And this is a busy Thursday for me, like you had said, Jose, going up to Chester, hopefully, and talking with Ben Bender. So that should be an interesting conversation. And then Bradley Carnell's press conference today going on, an Atlanta United show after this show. And so don't want to spend too much time, just ranting and everything. But yeah, it's a good comment there by Mike Barrera saying that Bender and a healthy Glavinovich could be key additions come the summertime that, would essentially look like new signings for the Union.
Or Anil Pierre too, right? That he, by all accounts, I would think was scheduled to take a part in one of these U.S. Open Cup games, whether it was this most recent one in Indy 11, which of course you never bank on automatically winning, and then sort of scheduling the next round of players for the following round. But Jan Glavinovic, 71 minutes against St. Louis, had that goal, the header, that was the game winner. 90 against Inter Miami, played fairly well, and then 90 against Orlando with a torn meniscus. That's a total of 260, 270 minutes, maybe. That's not a lot for a player that they brought in with a lot of expectation before Bruno. Should the Union had, pulled the trigger on his buy clause, Jan was going to be the record signing, value wise or transfer fee wise. So he should feel very much like a new signing, but that may not be enough for those that want more depth or I guess texture to this roster. But you're also absolutely right with Ben Bender, right? He is a player who has a lot to prove and just a few weeks away, I guess, too, right, Todd, of being able to negotiate a pre-contract with whoever he wants. I don't know how it works within the league, but he could definitely start thinking about his next move in the couple of weeks come June, because it's within 6 months of his contract expiry, unless there's already conversation somewhere else, behind the scenes. But it's exciting to start thinking about the summer, but I'm also really excited about not just this Saturday, but next Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going to be exciting times, busy schedule for the Union, but this is what the fans want to see, right? The Union winning in MLS, continuing to win and be in the top 4 spot, and they want to see them keep pushing for a U.S. Open Cup final berth. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that only 4 more wins and the Union could potentially win their first trophy since I don't really count the Eastern Conference, but it is what it is. The Supporters Shield, I would say, the first trophy since the Supporters Shield. So, yeah, we'll see if the Union can keep up the momentum come Wednesday against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in Open Cup. But sticking with this game still, Mikael Uhre, and we'll finish with him, and then Tai Baribo will be the last player we talk about, Jose, unless there's anything else you want to talk about from last night's game. Mikael Uhre had a couple chances last night, doesn't put him on target, gets slaughtered by fans for not putting that chance away on social media. He got slaughtered by those fans for not putting that chance away against Columbus Crew. Now he comes out, game-winning assist. And this is a player that's so streaky, man. And yes, you want your goals to be scored by your striker. You want your strikers to score goals. Like, crazy concept. I know. That's what you pay your strikers to do. But the one thing I do appreciate from Mikael Uhre is everything he does off the ball. There's runs in behind, stretching the field, making space for others. And Mikael Uhre, coming off the bench last night, did make a difference for this team, found himself in multiple good positions, multiple good spaces. And eventually, he still believes in himself. Okay, fine. I didn't get my goal in the 81st, 82nd minute, whatever the case was when he had that shot, and he probably should have put it in the back of the net. But he comes out, keeps the play alive. Shout out to Kevin Sullivan, too, by the way, where I questioned that substitute. I didn't really think that game called for Kevin Sullivan, but he keeps the corner kick alive, puts the ball back into the mixer, and then eventually works its way to Mikael Uhre. He's still staying alive, dribbles the ball like towards the right corner flag, and then crosses it over the top for Tai Baribo to have a free header, and it's a perfect header there by Tai Baribo. But credit has to be given to Mikael Uhre, right? That yeah, is he the perfect striker? No, absolutely not. But he's a player that gives his all every single game, comes up with a big assist. A few weeks ago, scores the game-winning goal against Montreal. And I think this is what you're going to get from Mikael Uhre, right, Jose? We've seen enough of him since 2022, knowing that, okay, he's going to have moments where if he's on fire, and he's going to finish with ease. There's going to be moments where he's not putting the ball in the back of the net. But the one thing you can't complain about Mikael Uhre is his hustle, stretching that back of the line, pressing. And that's something that Bradley Carnell values extremely with all his players. And he mentions that in the clip I'm about to play. But yeah, big moment for Mikael Uhre last night where he doesn't put the ball in the back of the net, has a big chance, and then he comes out with the game-winning assist.
And, I sort of talked with you about it behind the scenes. I think and I'm probably on the camp of being overly or maybe too harsh on Uhre too. Did he have chances where 3 touches should have been 2 and then it's a goal? Yeah, absolutely. But this is also a guy who's earned himself a spot as the 5th highest scoring player in MLS history, tied with Carranza. I think that gets lost on people in terms of what he has accomplished in his time with Philadelphia. Accomplished enough last year, apparently, to be able to trigger the automatic option on his contract for this year. So whatever those metrics were, whether it was appearances or goals and assists, appearances, and minutes, I don't know. But nonetheless, did enough to do so. He is a player that I think is ultimately gonna be one of those black sheep, sort of like, oh yeah, and in hindsight type of player where like, oh, maybe he wasn't as bad as we thought. Maybe we were really, really rough on him. And I think that's exactly what he's gonna be. I don't, gosh, I almost want you to talk to him at some point today when you go, but like the way that he chipped that ball to the back post right over Maya Yoshida, who was breakdancing like the lady from the Olympics, like it was like a pitching wedge. The way that he just got it right over Yoshida, over I guess a couple other bodies, right on Baribo's head was incredible. So that great substitution by Carnell. That's a game that I could see him have gone with a Chris Donovan substitution, and maybe none of whatever happened last night happened. So again, like kudos to Carnell for sort of maybe landing on some dumb luck, but it worked out. I like to think that he knows. Obviously, he absolutely knows a hell of a lot more. He knows a lot more than you and I. I get that, but yeah, just happy for Mika, as he calls him.
Mika. But this is Bradley Carnell on Mika.
I think we have such a good rotation system up top now that we can, make subs if needed and not to, skip a beat. And then we start gaining a lot of chances through what we discussed at halftime and start to force the issue. Mika gets in some great spots and now he's got like a couple assists in a couple games back to back. And he's just doing his job, and he does his job against the ball as well. So, it's part of us, the philosophy to start defending from the front. And we're happy with all the contributions. And, Tai had to dig deep as well, and he rewards himself with the game winner. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Rewards itself with the game winner, Tai Baribo. That's the last player we'll end with. But just big moment there from Mika, as Bradley Carnell had just said in the clip. And just fantastic performance from him. And you heard Bradley Carnell mention about, okay, yeah, we feel good with our strikers we have on this roster. And you had mentioned it, Jose, right? Guys on this team getting chances that they maybe normally didn't get under under Jim Curtin. And that's just a testament to the work that these guys are doing in training, showing Bradley Carnell what he wants. And he's rewarding them, right, with these chances in games. And they're paying him back with that trust and having moments like Mikael Uhre's assist coming off the bench. And there was that streak, Jose, right, against Atlanta, DC, and Montreal, where the strikers coming off the bench were scoring goals. And so, again, I guess Bradley Carnell knows a thing or two about ball. And whatever chances that or choices that he makes coming off the bench, it seems to work out more times than not.
He knows a little bit of ball. I'll give him that. He knows a tiny bit of ball. No, I honestly, this is a hard to argue with the guy when he's making these substitutions, when he's giving these players chances, whether they're earned or a mixture of being earned and fortune due to injury. I did not see. I saw and I didn't, I guess, when I broke the news of, knowing that Carnell was either going to be the guy, or I know he was the front runner, and then I knew that he was the guy and the union announced it. Like, I had done a deep dive and thinking like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. So it just seems like the perfect fit so far, a third, or I guess a little bit over a third into the season, just figuring out how to get the most out of his players. And he's doing just that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last player that we're focused on is Tai Baribo. I started it at the beginning of the show. He does history last night for the Philadelphia Union, becoming the fastest player in Union history to reach 10 goals in a single season. He's also now the fifth player in team history to record 3 multi-goal games in a season, joining Sebastian Letou, CJ Sapong, and Julian Kranza and Daniel Gazdag. Baribo also leads the league in goals with 10. And there's a player, I mean, so many strikers, right? And it's not just a Union issue, right? Strikers are hot and cold. We see it all over the world. Once they get hot, it seems like goals come in bunches. When they're cold, yeah, the goals dry out for a couple games. But Tai Baribo, 2 goals last night and 2 huge goals for the Union. Game tying goal, game winning goal. And he didn't want to mention Diego Fagundes after the game, but he said that it felt even more better scoring the game winning goal when he did because of all the chirping that Diego Fagundes did last night. Didn't mention the player, didn't want to get fined. I totally get that, but it's like, come on. Everybody knows that Diego was chirping with you last night. They panned to it so many times on the broadcast. Like, go ahead, Ty, talk your crap. And yeah, I guess what better way to talk your crap than scoring the game tying goal, but then the game winning goal in the 96th minute. And I had talked about how Tai Baribo wasn't getting a lot of service in the first half. Bruno Damiani wasn't getting a ton of service in the half. And I asked Ty after the game, how do you stay confident in yourself knowing that those chances will eventually come? And this is what Ty had to say.
It was tough. It was tough. Not because also they didn't create us chances, also because I think I don't speak about one of it, I speak also only about me. I think maybe I didn't put myself in the best position to get the ball. I all the time try to look at myself, not the others, because I try to see how they see the game. But I knew that second half we will start, because I saw everybody in the dressing room. I saw that everybody with their chest up, and I knew that we will put the balls more into the box, and it's my job to be there. So I came ready, and thanks God it's worked.
Yeah, and he says, yeah, he just had to be ready, and the chances came from in the second half, and fortunately for Tai Baribo, he was able to put those chances in the back of the net. But yeah, I got to imagine being a striker and having limited chances, and when the chances do come, you better make the most of that chance. And Tai Baribo did last night, scoring yet again, as Jarrett points out here, both goals. All 10 of his goals this season are first-time finishes. And yeah, I do believe that's correct. Headers, right? Or just first-time shots. I mean, it's crazy to think about. There's a player that Jim Curtin had on his bench all those times, and he just couldn't crack into this starting 11 or come off the bench and replace a Julian Kranz or a Mikael Uhre. But again, credit to good scouting, right? Ernst Tenner knew what he was getting, knew that Tai Baribo could be a player to provide goals for this team. And that's exactly what Tai Baribo has been doing this season with his 10 goals.
Yeah, it's I appreciate Ty not talking that shit, right? That's crap, whatever you want to call it, Todd. I know the FCC is going to listen to us on the radio right now and fine you, but I appreciate Ty having the wherewithal to, despite being unbelievably emotional, even that one of those last headers where it was just so obvious that the defender was at fault, holding him and pushing him and pulling him, and this second referee coming in.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that he was able to come through, and I would recommend that everybody, if you get a chance, look up the Dupe episode. Sage Hurley does a wonderful job, and I'm not just saying that. She does a great job with the podcast. Listen to the episode with Tai Baribo. Really, really fantastic story that he has in terms of the now. But if you want to learn more about the past of Tai Baribo, MLSsoccer.com, my part-time employers, went ahead and put out a really, really good depth piece about Tai Baribo and the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations that he had to go through growing up and becoming a professional player. But can't be any happier for Ty, right? All the records that he's breaking. And again, to think that up until last summer, he was the substitute of a substitute to be substituted during that really weird Seattle Sounders. Like I remember you and I sort of sitting down with a piece of paper.
Oh my God. Yeah. I forgot about that. Wow.
Sort of following, or like Ty was a substitute for this player, but then substituted to bring in Julian Carranza, who was just coming off of injury. So it's like, to think that he's gone from that to what he is now, leading the Golden Boot race and being such a linchpin of this team in terms of scoring. It's you can't be any happier. And again, you're once again completely right, just getting it right and just I think it was Ryan Richter who told us, and this is Union 2 related, but everybody flourishes at different times and everybody has sort of their timeline. And maybe this is Tai's, it just happened this way and can't question it too much, though it would have been nice to have seen it earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'll pull up Shaggy's comment here again before we end the show. He says Galaxy definitely should have had a red card or two. Yeah, that Nelson challenge towards the end of the game on Mikael Uhre was a little bit rough, but I thought at first that Mikael got stepped on in the stomach, but yeah, it was just he stepped over him actually, and it was a crunching tackle. I don't think that was a red card. I'm trying to think anything else in this game that could have potentially been a red card. Not that it sticks out on the top of my mind, but maybe I missed something. But then the referee needing a substitution, I've never seen that before. I mean, that was interesting, right? And you knew once they subbed him out that there was going to be a significant amount of added time there. And to the Union's benefit, it took them 6 minutes in stoppage time out of the 8 that they put up on the board. And Union benefit from a late referee substitute in this game.
The only time I've ever seen this type of thing is when a sideline ref, I guess an assistant referee, falls or trips or takes a ball to the face and then they need to be substituted. But I don't think I've ever seen a center ref be substituted. Maybe I don't watch enough soccer and that's on me. But this one was really interesting because he didn't take any medical help. It didn't look like he pulled a muscle or anything. It was just genuinely him walking off. Was he tied? Like I don't know that we'll ever get an explanation, or I don't know if the pool reporters ever asked the questions. But like it would be really interesting to know if they're even able to disclose or have to disclose onto why. But yeah, you're right that the Union did benefit from that substitution. And I guess maybe kudos in a way. Yes, he technically scored a goal, but shout out to Nate Harriel. He had that yellow card pretty early in the first half. I think it was like within the first 12 to 17 minutes, if I recall, and then carried out the rest of the match on that caution. And I'm sure, damn it, it's raining again. I gotta
going to Chester.
No, well, I got to go into Center City for a lunch today for work. But yeah, kudos to Nate for that specific angle of his game. I think a lot of players were misfiring. It was not pretty. It did not look great at times. In fact, downright awful. But the Union were still able to pull that through, and the fact that they're able to have these type of games and still win is fantastic. But how good would it have felt, Todd, to have beaten Columbus and have beaten LA back to back like that?
Yeah. Would have been an unbelievable feeling. 6 minute, by the way, is when Nathan Harriel got his yellow card. So
6 minute?
Yeah, so that's a long time to play on a yellow card. So credit to him for still staying aggressive, but timing his challenges as well as he could. And you're right, Jose. I mean, potential to be on a 5-game winning streak if you would have beat Columbus Crew. But look, they are 5 games unbeaten, which is a positive for this team. Maybe something that may not be a positive, and I don't want to talk about it. We've talked about it too many times the last episode, is Andre Blake not being in goal once again, misses another match. Drew says, I'd anticipate another Rick start Saturday. Can't see them rolling out a hampered Blake on turf. Yeah, I'm of the same mindset there, Drew. It's like, why put him out there in horrible field conditions? So, yeah, I would anticipate, in my opinion, another Rick start. And I guess we'll find out from Bradley Carnell here in a couple of hours if he's in the mood to give an update on Andre Blake. And then Shaggy says he's talking about an elbow on Jacob Glesnes and a pull down on Tai Baribo should have potentially been red cards. I'll have to go back and see both of those moments. But Jose, thank you as always for joining the show. Where can people follow you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Jose R Nuñez 91, I believe it's what it is. If you're watching, you know where I am. You can certainly say it that way. And if you follow Todd's content, you obviously know. Jose R Nuñez 91. But I am on match priority this weekend. MLS switched me from Saturday games to solely focusing on Sunday night. What's it called? Sunday night Continental,
whatever it is. Sorry,
Sunday night soccer percent by Continental. Yeah, so
right.
It'll be Miami, Orlando. So I would probably fully expect a write up for that game. And just honestly, what an exciting. I don't think I even expected as one of the most optimistic people out there that they were going to have this good of a May so far. And we're coming here towards the tail end of this really, really busy stretch. And it almost feels like they've really this part so far.
Absolutely. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast of The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel live every single podcast, youtube.com/Free Kick Pod. Goals breakdown video probably later sometime today or Thursday. Again, going on an Atlanta United show here in 6 minutes, and then heading up to Chester for an interview with Ben Bender. Did just get that confirmed while we were doing the show, so that's good news. Bradley Carnell's press conference at 12:30. And then trying to get the match recap article from last night's game out, and then getting the goals breakdown video out, and then maybe start working on a match preview article for Saturday's game against Atlanta. So busy day. Happy that I had off today on Thursday, but I would not expect any of the listeners, you guys, I would not expect us to have any more early morning podcasts for a very long time, as this was one of my last days off of work for a significant amount of time before I go to Denver. So all you guys, 127 people watching live early in the morning. Hopefully you guys had enough coffee to keep you guys awake. But as Mike Thomas said at the beginning of the show, the adrenaline is what's keeping him up, as I imagine it's doing for a lot of you guys as well. So with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.